So let me go here. It is all the views here I'm expressing are few purely remember my personal. Neither the government of India where I worked or as a part of Interpol Global Cybercrime Expert Committee member for the last 8 years, nor the Reserve Bank of India where I'm a standing committee member and all. Please remember, no one is responsible and liable for this. So first I will try to set the context because almost in all the WhatsApp groups, I'm observing one thing. Whenever there is some cyber security incident happens or the breach happens, and people used to talk about that what is the data privacy and a lot of certain points like, can we keep the data within the country, out of country, etc. And some people also started minting money saying that I'm having a data privacy, I will come and do it. And this is my, some organizations already started doing something called the data privacy implementations and all that. It is very surprising. I don't know how they are implementing all that, even though there is nothing called as a Data Privacy Act in this particular country. Okay, I will come for that the point of discussion exactly what is the data which is available in the Palika Bazaar for 10 rupees in a CD, and can you file a case against, remember, in the perspective of the legal and all. I'm going to discuss about it. So I will put the context about here. It is the standards and framework. What was the difference between these two terminologies? And what is the current regulatory framework available in this country as far as the banking sector is concerned, as far as the entire nation is concerned? And what are the various institutions that are really come up? That is the one that is most important here it is. And ultimately, the most important topics that is related to the Information Technology Act. And afterwards, some of my closing thoughts as well as the discussions. This is what has really happened if you look at this. You're all very well about this point. The number of cybersecurity incidents that has been reported is always a tip of iceberg. That is, everyone knows about it. And almost a lot of cases have never seen the light in this particular country because our regulatory mechanisms are very, very poor, because nobody is going to punish you if you don't even inform to them. Maximum at most, they are going to send a show cause notice, not beyond that. So that's where, remember, the Air India has been hacked. I think you might have read this news somewhere in the month of March, April. Air India has outsourced their computer system to a company called Sita. And even though on one fine day, because I being a government servant, I used to travel very frequently with Air India. I have no other option. So I got a mail from saying that, oh, please change your frequent flyer, whatever mail ID you are having, further the password, your PIN numbers, etc. Such type of mail has come. So actually, the Sita has been breached, not in the month of March 2021. It has happened sometime in the August 2020 itself. So when you are monitoring the dark web, we come across, remember, a lot of international airlines data for whom this Sita is also offering the services. And including the Air India, remember, the data is available. But even though all that international airlines which are present in some part of Southeast Asia, the next day itself, they informed to their customers and all saying that please change all the passwords and all. But my Air India probably took more than 7 months to inform and send a message at night around 12:30 or 12:40 I got in the form of a mail. So I was a little bit surprised why they took that time. The second, if you look at, is the Jubilant Foodworks, under whose banner the Domino's is going to. You're all well aware about it. The hackers have sent a communication to them saying, boss, you have been breached and your data has been available. As usual, the Jubilant Foodworks said nothing. We are not breached. And one fine day, remember, the hacker group has sent a mail to them saying that this is the sample data, but still they are not agreed for it. And ultimately, remember, on one fine day, the hacker group has posted this data on a dark websites where anybody can access. Just go there and give your mobile number or the name, you are going to get it. Remember how many times you have ordered the pizza, whether it got delivered or not, and all the details, etc. are available. So now the Domino's started saying afterwards, as I started doing the investigation of the Computer Emergency Response Team, Government of India, send a notice to them saying that please do the investigation, report back, etc. So I'm going to discuss about what is the roles and powers of the setting and what they are supposed to do. We don't require to say about it. In all other cases also, this is what is happening. The Matrimony website, you are well aware, Tamil Nadu based one. It got breached and there is no answer from them. Unacademy has got breached. The Big Basket has been breached. Now, today, the reason even people are thinking about it is not that just the case of data breaches. In the ransomware attacks are also coupled with that of the data breaches. Because gone are the days where the hacker will come inside and just encrypt and go off. Today, the hackers have realized if I make my 6 months hard work and enter into the computer system of Mr. Sharath, and when I'm encrypting it, Sharath is not paying me even a single rupee because he is having a very good backup policy. He is just formatting that computer drives and bringing back the system to business continuity. So all my 6 months hard work has become really waste. So now what the hacker started doing nowadays is, first they're exfiltrating the data. After the exfiltration of the data, they're encrypting the computer systems. It means today, if you look at it, almost in every ransomware attack, there is a first data exfiltration is happening, followed by that, remember, only ransomware attacks is happening. So we asked the hackers, why you are doing? Sir, if I encrypt them with a ransomware and if I ask them $8 million US or something, not even a single penny they are paying. So this time we are sending a ransom note in another way. If you don't pay us $8 million US, we are going to release the data in the public forum so that the regulatory fines, etc., you will experience, and it may be 20 millions or 30 millions, etc. So instead of paying $30 million US for the regulatory fine, it is better to pay something around, remember, 8 millions to the hackers. That is exactly what is happening. Now, recently we found it, we asked a lot of hackers from the last 3-4 months. So what we asked them is very simple. So now the number of attacks in India is happening. Do you have any data? They said, sir, nearly 30% of the Indian organizations' data is available with us, but we are not going to release the data now. They're all just waiting when India will get the Data Privacy Act. If the India gets the Data Privacy Act, now after the Data Privacy Act, they are going to release to the public so that they can demand more amount of money. That is exactly the thought process of what the hacker groups are happening. It is. Look at before GDPR comes and after GDPR came. The second GDPR has come, remember, afterwards, the Marriott breaches happened, British Airways breaches happened. Same thing here. 30% of the Indian organizations' data is available today with the hacker groups in the dark web. Just they are waiting when India is going to have the Data Privacy Act, because they can have a better bargain power if India comes to the Data Privacy Act. So why I'm mentioning about, yes, in case breach happens, what we should do, what is the regulatory legal systems that are currently available, that's what we are going to discuss as a part of this. So now, the threat scenario, that's where I'm mentioning it from the last 8 months to 9 months today. The ransomware attacks linked to the data breaches is a new trend that is coming. Almost I have seen it in the 97% of cyber attacks. The source from where the attacker is coming is via phishing mail. And still our people are taking the phishing as a very, very light component. And they're not even bothered about there is something called a phishing attack on them. Just they leave it as it is. Third, today, gone are the days of the script kiddies. Today, the national state actors who are really involved in these major attacks. Now let us go for exactly what was the meaning of the standards and what type of standards you are supposed to comply, etc. You know, framework is nothing but remember something called a wake, but standard is something which was defined very well. So this is a basic differences between, remember, the framework and the standards. If you look at it, frameworks are always vague, so you have to be very careful whether the regulator is issuing is something called a framework or is it a standard. You have to be very careful. Second is, we know very well about, let it be a framework or a standard, there are two types. One is called voluntary, another is called mandatory. For example, if you look at it, several people have asked, sir, is it necessary for my organization to go for something called ISO 27001? Please remember, in the Indian context I'm talking about, if you are an Indian legal entity, no regulator has asked you to go for something called ISO 27001. So if you want to get the confidence of the person with whom you are doing the business or any of the customer, because today the cyber security is not a cost center, cyber security is more like a business enabler. If you want to attract more customers saying, boss, I'm having the best information security practices, etc., so I'm going for ISO 27001. Same is the case with the BCPs and all that. Remember, they're all completely something called a voluntary. That is, nothing is called mandatory. Mandatory is the one which is a pakka, you are supposed to implement it and you have to follow for it. And that too, it is maybe, remember, yes, the mandatory ones are generally industry specific, the voluntary ones are generally applicable. And remember, the other point, if you look at is mandatory is internally customized, remember, whereas if you take the case of the voluntary one, it may be generally applied. So that's where we are going to look at is, for example, Reserve Bank of India has come out with cyber security framework for the banks. It was issued by the regulator, means you take it granted, it's a mandatory. So please understand today, what I'm going to discuss about is completely about the mandatory, because as long as your organization is present in this particular geographical location of this country, you have to think about the mandatory one. Voluntary ones are required or not required, or your client is asking, is you can take the call. But what is most important is what is mandatory means what was made a must by the regulators of this country. That is the one you are supposed to keep this point in mind. So we know very well about, yes, if you start adopting a framework or a standard, the greatest advantages we are going to get it, because it will help you remember as a benchmark for comparison. Because nowadays people are coming, some companies are coming, sir, I want to do NAST framework. So several people are going to ask, sir, is it necessary for you to do NAST framework? The answer is no in this country. Nobody has asked you to do it. Same is the case with also the PCA, DSS, etc. Even RBI has also never made it. Please remember this point. Yes, certainly if you are having, remember, something like a best practices you are following, it will help you to a great extent in the defense against the lawsuits. The reason for, if you look at it, under Information Technology Act Section 43A and the 43, which I'm going to discuss very clearly, any organization who receives the data, who processes the data, who transmit the data should take reasonable security practices. Otherwise, they are liable for imprisonment or fines, etc. But who is going to decide whether you are taking a reasonable security practices is on the basis of the certifications you are holding it. Regulatory, you have no option at all. You have to compulsory. But what is not regulatory, remember, it is what is not mandatory. It is all up to you to stand really in the court. That's where, if you remember, start adopting this type of standards and framework, it will help you to defend against your what? Lawsuits. Please remember, that is the greatest advantage we are going to what? Get. Remaining are very common, customer and partner conferences, etc. So these are the various cybersecurity frameworks, remember, that are globally is taken as a very, very standard. And this is somewhere or other, you might have seen it, some are other standards if you look at this. But what I'm showing here it is, if you start looking is 4 plus 4 plus 4 plus 4, you can look at 16. I told you some are industry specific, some are, remember, very customized, etc. Nothing is really required for the Indian context. Please understand, as far as the Indian regulator is concerned, none of these, remember, are really going to work. Please understand this point. And what is really required, I'm going to discuss in the next slides, etc. Please remember, these are all only something called the voluntarily. Please understand this point very carefully. So what is the regulatory framework? If you look at this, there are two things. One is the national level and something called as at the industry level. National level, if you look at is, there are certain national agencies in the government of India. So they are the one. But below that, there are certain state governments also come out with something called some regulations. And below that, there is something called industries are available. For example, RBI has come out with something called data localization and data privacy laws, let us assume. If tomorrow the government of India come out with a law related to the data privacy and data localization, the RBI will not get applicable. It means you have to look at from the bottom to that of the top approach. The meaning is, if any industry is having some standard in a particular state, the state government is issued something, then the industry is of no use, null and void, take it granted. Then from the state government, it's a case of for central government, that's what you are supposed to look at is. Please understand it, because I'm going to look at about something called data localization as far as the banking sector and the finance sector, which is a very big discussion that is happening around the corners, etc. So that's where you are supposed to look at is what is available at the national level and what is available at the state level and what is available at our what industry level, etc. At the national level, what Indian government is having? Yes, Indian government is having at the top something called the cyber security policy that has come out in the year 2013. So please understand, India is one of the few countries that has come out with something called the cyber security policy. 2013, even though it is 13 years or 14 years later to what some of the developed countries and developing countries have really come out, but India was very slow in that approach. And ultimately, what was the main theme or the objective of that particular, remember, is protecting our national critical information infrastructure and creating a cyberspace in such a manner, citizens, businesses, and government are going to have a very good, safe, and secure cyber environment, and that is also a cyber resilient. So that was the initial motive for which the cyber security policy has come out in 2013. But from after, remember, 5-6 years, people started thinking about, yes, this is a very, very broad, simple, but as it is, the country should have something called a cyber security strategy. We require to have it. That's where they identified the more 4 focus areas on which the cyber security strategy has to come out. Even though effort has started sometime around 2017 onwards at the level, but as on date, India don't have something called national cyber security strategy. It means you can think of even some countries are having as national cyber security strategies. Even though starting from 2001 onwards, even after 20 years, Indian government don't have something called national cyber security strategy. That is the most unfortunate thing. So please understand it. So currently today, what is available for these countries, something called the cyber security policy of the 2013. Beyond that, nothing is available here. So please understand this. Second is, as a part of that, what they did is to strengthen the cyber security ecosystem. The government of India has kept something called Cyber Surakshit Bharat. So this is one that was really started to safeguard the entire country, because the digital India is the one of the concept on which the government is going. So aiming at strengthening the cyber security ecosystem in the whole India, the government has come out with something under the Ministry of Electronics and Information Technology called MITI. It is launched something called Cyber Surakshit Bharat Initiative. And this has been, started implementing under National E-Governance Division. What activities they have performed, etc. we are going to see in the next slides, etc. So basically, as an individual, as a citizen of this country, what is I'm more concerned about, the Cyber Surakshit Bharat is the one that is going to drive me, because this is the one what the government is trying to make an individual to have a very safe and secure ecosystem when you are trying to make a transactions, etc. on internet. Some of the state governments exactly on par with the central government, etc. in order to attract, the central, some of the foreign companies saying, we also started doing something called a cyber security policy in my state. Even Jharkhand is also having today. Bihar is also going for that. So don't worry about Jamtar and all that, etc. So cyber security policy is started by Telangana government and various governments, etc. Telangana government is the first that has really started in the year 2016. So especially what is very crucial about this particular document compared to other is the last one. Establishing a requisite and institutions and legal framework to counter the cybercrime. This is a very good topic, as a part of that, because law and order is generally considered as a state subject in this country. So it is a law and order, is a state police who are supposed to tackle it. In such cases, the cybercrime will not be a bigger component of the national cyber security strategy. That's where this Telangana government is having a specific, this particular line is providing an institution, the legal framework really to counter the cybercrime. So that is a very innovative one they have given it. Especially they have started giving also a lot of impetus for the startups and all that as a part of this. Now, once at the national level, if you talk about the national cyber security strategies and national cyber security policies of 2013, what is available at the, organizations levels, if you start at it, the Reserve Bank of India has come out with something called cyber security in the banks. Those who are the banking domain, they should know one master document is something called the Gopal Krishna Committee recommendations. So RBI has issued a guidelines in year 2012. So that is on information security, electronic banking, technology risk assessment, and cyber frauds. And these are some of the areas, which they have completely focused on that. But once the document has come out and the bank started implementing IS audit, IT services, outsourcing, IT operations and all. But 2016, the Reserve Bank of India has thought of what was issued at the 2012 is not that much useful. There is no doubt it was. The reason is, if you look at these guidelines that was given as a part of the Gopal Krishna Committee recommendation, the thought process of, every organization who implemented the cyber security, how we can protect our computer systems. So the most important strategy of this RBI guidance of 2000 is the protection of our computer systems. Having an antivirus, right? Doing a OS patch management, all that has been given as a part of that one. So protection is the major importance that is given, and less importance was given to something called detection and our response. But now the latter they realized what was given in the 2000, once it is a protect, detect, respond model with a more stress for the protection. Then they realized based on the 6-7 years of experience, and especially the Bangladesh breach that has happened, you cannot have something called 100% cyber security. So 100% cyber security is not available means you will not have something called 100% protection. So why can't have something called how fast you can detect it, how fast you can respond, based on that how you can go for the protection. That's where, remember, detect response protection is the one that has given us a new logic. So that's where the cyber security strategy of the banking sector has been changed from protect, detect, respond to detect, respond to protect. That's where the cyber security framework of 2016 has given. That's where the more strength has been given in detection of the attacks, etc. And second, also the emphasis is more from the reactive to proactive to predictive. That's where they started telling about how you can have a security operations center, how you can have a SIM, how can you have proactive strategies of something called tabletop exercises, red team exercises, etc. has been given as a part of that. So these two are the two important, remember what the RBI has come out. And in addition to these two, from time to time, based on the cyber attacks that is happening in the various organizations, various threats that has posed for the banking and financial industry, the Reserve Bank of India started coming out with a large number of advisories. It's very good as advisories they started coming about. For example, a particular bank has got impacted with the cyber attack. The bank has done some incident investigation. They came to know, oh, this is the IP address from where the attackers has come. Remember, this is a hash values they did it. This is a modus operandi, the fraud that has happened. Based on that, Reserve Bank of India started coming out with something called as nothing but the advisories. So all that advisories are getting distributed to the various bank CISOs. And based on the bank CISOs, remember, yes, they're implementing or they're controlling their organization so that the same attacks will not happen again. So when so many advisories have come, and that too in the Reserve Bank of India, we know very well about, there are two different entities that are working. One is called Department of Banking Supervision, popularly called DBS, and another is called DPSS, Department of Payment Settlement Solutions. So DPSS is going to come out with various advisories and DBS is going to come out with various advisories. And a lot of these frameworks that are available starting from Gopal Krishna Committee recommendation to that of the 2016 Cyber Security Framework, already 4 years gap has come. Now Reserve Bank of India has realized, why can't I can have a single document comprising of all these? That's where the Reserve Bank of India has come out with something called Master Directions of 2021. So in February 2021, the Reserve Bank of India has issued a Master Directions, and that is popularly called Digital Payment Security Controls. But what is, remember, in all these cases, in what way the last 4 or 5 years is, please understand this point, the responsibility and the liability of the implementation has been put on top management. So board is going to be responsible. Please understand, this is a new thing from 2016 onwards, every document has completely changed. So please remember, the responsibility and liability lies always with that of the top management. That's why organizations should have board approved. Please understand this point very carefully. Organizations should have a board approved cybersecurity policy framework. The next point is IT security policy is different from that of the cybersecurity policy. So these are all the some of the common statements which they are given. So this master directions, which were issued on 18th February 2021, the banks are given a time of, remember, approximately August 18, 2021. They're supposed to come out with something called Digital Payment Security Controls Policy and Framework, which every bank is having. And this document, I don't know how many of you got a chance to look at it. It's a wonderful document. It consists of 5 chapters where the applicability, who are the regulated entities for whom it is applicable, what are the general controls that are available as far as, for example, the IT governance, etc. Then internet banking security controls, what they should implement it, mobile payment application security controls, and the card payment security controls. So total 5 chapters are available. It's a very thoughtful document. Why it is you are all aware about, if you look at the cyber security, in every organization, there is something called 3 layers of defense. The first layer of defense is nothing but the business teams. So the second layer of defense, you're all well aware, something called as a CRO, that is a risk officer, is SOC and all the people. And third layer of defense is nothing but the internal audit team. So what we observed in the last 6, 7 or 8 years, whatever it is, there is no, remember, link between the first layer and second layer and third layer. For example, the business team wants some application. They are just, remember, application, they are getting developed it, they are testing for the functionality and they are rolling about that product. They will never take a sign off from the CISO or the chief risk officer. So that's where, remember, we realized, if any cyber security incident happens due to malfunction of that particular application or vulnerability, the bad name is going to the second layer of defense. And second layer always says, sir, I don't know about even this application. They never took the sign off from me. That's where if you look at this master direction on digital payment security control, they very clearly mention about all these people should function very well. They should work in coordination. Second is secure development life cycle. And remember also secure by design are the most important. And you are not even aware about this document, how it is different from the other age. If any bank is using any third-party application, it is mandatory to take a sign-off from that application owner, saying that it does not consist of any malware, the backdoors or the hidden doors by which the data is going on. For example, if X bank is using a core banking solution of some big company, you are supposed to take it. So every application you are using it is mandatory to take that type of, remember, the reason why it is I'm mentioning about is there's a lot of backdoor entries that are available, which the product vendors are not even giving you. And maximum testing is happening only in the functionality. But even after functionality also, sometimes the new updates are coming. Recently, last week, I've seen it in one case. A new update has been implemented, the OTP has gone off. 2 days, the OTP is missed. Some people have got it, remember, successfully, they came to know. It has spread like a wild, remember, news. And you will not believe it, in 3 days, the bank has lost approximately 4 crores of rupees. You can think of even how the fraudsters came to know at night 11 o'clock, just by putting some update, how the things have really gone out. That's where the master directions have come out. So basically, those who are in the banking domain, especially these are the things they should think of. Now, what about, remember, again, the RBI has also started taking, who will take care about something called the urban cooperative banks. For quite a long time, remember, urban cooperative banks are not on the purview of the Reserve Bank of India. So RBI has come out with a comprehensive cyber security framework even for the urban cooperative banks. But what is the peculiarity of this document is nothing but a graded approach they have followed, and this document has been issued in the year 2019. Because don't think IS audit, etc. is only for the case of for what? The big banks, etc. Cooperative banks also should have this type of IS audit. It's a very potential market. Really, they're looking for it. So they classified the banks into level 1, level 2, level 3, level 4 categories. For level 1, they are given a controls 1. Level 2, they are given controls 2, but in addition to controls 1 given for the level 1. It means if my bank is under category of the level 4, so I have to implement level 1, 2, 3, all in addition to 4 that was given all the controls. And as usual, remember the board approved cybersecurity policy and the framework, and they should have a person called CISO, and CISO function and CEO function should be separate. Please understand this point very clearly. So there is nothing called the conflict of what? Framework. Especially what is the level 4? If any cooperative banks which are having their own ATM switch and shift, etc., or if they are hosting any data center or providing support to other banks which are smaller in nature. So they will be considered as something called the level 4. So please understand the primary urban cooperative banks, again, the cybersecurity framework as issued by what? Reserve Bank of India. Now the same document, you will not believe it, they have given to rural cooperative banks, right? And that rural cooperative banks, remember, they are not under the control of, remember, Reserve Bank of India, they are the control of under what? NABARD. So same document, remember, has been converted by these fellows with the same graded approach. So level 1, 2, 3, 4, again they made it, they made the controls 1, 2, 4, etc. So please understand it. So it is mandatory to have a, you will not believe it, level 1 banks itself is having incident response policy framework, etc. You can think of even the, no doubt, level 1 bank, you take it. It is a district cooperative bank, or you take it, and remember the previous slide which I have shown, urban cooperative bank. Bank should have a cyber security policy framework with them. It should be different from the IT security policy. It should be approved by the board, etc. And all the controls which you thought of, remember, are available. You know to what extent? The extent is nothing but bank should have a crisis management plan or incident response management plan is required. And they are supposed to be get audited at least once in a year, and that certification has to be produced. So please remember, this is really what is as a made as a part of your what? Banking sector to a great extent, right? But now let us see what the next point you are observing it is. What about the non-banking financial institutions? NBFCs is also comes under the Reserve Bank of India. They issued a master directions in the June 2017, and they are again classified into 2 categories because section A and section B. Those which are having asset size of 500 crores and above, they are considered under Section A. And those below that one, remember the difference is more or less they are given is something called as a same, but the implementation types was little bit more, because those who are the above A, because the risk being very high, they are asked to meet a deadline of a particular, and for the Section B, they are given a little bit more. But we have seen it in a lot of NBFCs, a lot what is happening is IT services outsourcing. In the last 2 years, when I have seen a lot of public sector banks and some of the major private banks, who is the real culprit involved in this cyber is nothing but it's the internal people. Please understand, internal does not mean our bank people. Internal means the applications which are using. That application is completely under the support of one vendor. And that vendor fellow who is having a complete knowledge application, he is the man really involved in most of the frauds. So 3 crores, for example, is a very, very popular State Bank of India foreign travel card fraud. You might have heard about it. Just you can go to Google and type it. Where one of the internal employees really involved in that, CBI Mumbai is investigating it. Within 1 month, he is able to siphon off, a single individual is able to siphon off approximately 9.8 crores of rupees. So please understand it. IT governance, IT policy, information, cyber security, IT operations, everything has been made as a part of this NBFC document, because just by reading one document, more or less all are going to be exactly on the same lines. But there is a need for these to be implemented in all these cases. Then what about the case of fintech? Several people ask, sir, is there any Reserve Bank of India guidelines as far as the fintech industry is concerned? The answer is exactly again the same. But Reserve Bank of India will never interfere in the day-to-day affairs, please remember, of any of the banks. So Reserve Bank of India, what they say, if X organization is using a third party's, remember, gateway or third party's financial application, so for that bank, that fellow is a vendor. So RBI really has no control over it. For example, recently try to recall the case of Just Pay Breach or MobiKwik. RBI is no way concerned with it. The reason why it is they're not concerned with is very simple. Please understand it. It's a bank who are hiring them. So for a bank, it is nothing but a vendor. So between the bank and the vendor, only they are required to have something called the service level agreement. Please understand that SLAs are very, very important when you start using any of the, remember, the third-party applications or third-party fintech applications or anything. But what the RBI has thought of, remember, when so many fintech industries are coming as a startup, and when banks started going for which one is a cheaper, etc., we know the one that is cheaper means the one who is invested a very less on, remember, the cyber security. That's one of the criteria. So automatically what they did is they created an inter-regulatory working group under Reserve Bank of India in 2016 to look and report, remember, the fintech industries and what type of regulatory framework is really required for it. And that document is available in the public domain. It's a very, very wonderful document released by the Reserve Bank of India about the working group. I think Dr. Krishna Shastry of IDRBT is also one of the member of that one. And that document was put it for the public comments and all that. So one of the key features that was a very well understood, and remember where everyone is trying to look for this as one of the business areas, can't we have something called a regulatory sandbox? So how to standardize the fintech industry? How to standardize the product where the application vulnerabilities are available? So why can't we have a standard platform where everybody will come and test their products and repeatability and look at whether every security control was present or not? So regulatory sandbox is the one that was proposed as a part of that. And today there are two applications that are really getting tested on what? This regulatory sandbox. One is a URUPay or something, etc. So already is getting tested. So those who are, remember, working on the fintech industry, how to standardize and stabilize and how to get it, remember, saying that yes, it is free from all application vulnerabilities. You are following the best practices, etc. is on the basis of getting registered with this sandbox and getting tested this sandbox so that whether vulnerabilities are available with them or not. So that is basically as far as the RBI is concerned about the banking fintech industry as well as the NBFCs or industries are concerned as a regulator. What about the insurance industry is concerned? So once the cyber attacks are happening, the data breaches are happening, it is also the insurance industry, the IRDA has also set up a committee, remember? So they issued something called guidelines for the information cyber security insurance that was in the year 2017, April. And there is not much difference because if you read it starting from CISA manual to anywhere, exactly the words are same. So IT governance, etc., will be there. IT policy, cyber security policy, the governance mechanism, who should report to whom, how to report the cyber security incidents, etc. But the most important is IRDA has come out is the amendments that has remember for the information cyber security insurance 29/12/2020 they come out. Why they have come out, I don't know how many have seen it. The last 8 to 9 months, remember, especially from the last August or something, a lot of insurance companies have become victim of what something called ransomware attacks. You look at Google, you will understand it, starting from Religare to India Bulls to etc. etc. So a lot of companies and the data breaches have come out. Once this has happened, remember, yes, they come out. The reason why this is happening is VAPT has become a simple task because people will call a local vendor, that fellow will run some Nessus tool and give the report, boss, these are the things that are vulnerabilities available with a beautiful color grading. So this is a green, this is blue, this is red, this is amber, etc. So, so it is up to you. And you will, remember, try to implement it. The application owner says, sir, my application will not work if you close this, remember, vulnerability. So there's no proper sign-off happening between the first layer and the second layer, whether to close that vulnerability or not to close the vulnerabilities, etc. So in such cases, what they come out is, especially in this 29/12/2020 document, is with what frequency you are supposed to conduct the vulnerability assessment and penetration testing, and what is the procedure you are supposed to adopt for conducting it, and what are the gaps that are going to be available, and how to close that gaps is the most important. And they also ask, remember, IS audit has to be conducted annually by a certain empanel vendor, or people are having a DSA certification or CISA certifications, etc. And closing that, remember, the gaps in a very, very time-bound manner is the one that was an amendment that was being made. Because even Reserve Bank of India is also going to come out very shortly for all financial industries, something called as, please remember, VAPT. Because VAPT, there is no standard procedure that is adopted today. Lot of vulnerabilities that are really coming out, because the VAPT company who is giving the report also will give very, very cautiously, saying that as on this date, remember, these are the vulnerabilities I have found it. Known vulnerabilities is the word they are using, and they are not using something called unknown vulnerabilities. I don't think any hacker will come with a known vulnerability today into our network. He certainly has to exploit that, zero-day exploit that. There are certain applications which are using it, that's a third-party application. It's a mandatory also to take it. For example, if you look at Reserve Bank of India has said earlier for the banks should go for vulnerability assessment and penetration testing once in, remember, the quarter. I don't know many of us seen it. But this digital payment security control document master directions that has come out, they classified into two categories. What the first one is? The first and the foremost is, all banks should go for continuous vulnerability assessment 24/7 for all critical servers. For non-critical servers, at least twice in a year. It means earlier quarter for everything has been replaced now under two categories. And one category is for the case of where all critical servers and internet faces, it is a continuous 24/7 vulnerability scanning. That's where, I don't know how many have read the Gartner report also. That's where the Gartner has come out very recently, in the next 3-4 years. One service that is going to gain very popularity is attack surface management. Enterprise attack surface management is the one. That's a 24/7 continuous scanning and identifying the various risks that are mapping and giving a risk scoring. Risk scoring is for the top management because they're more concerned only with the bar diagrams and the pie diagrams, etc. But our interest is not bar and the pie diagrams, but look at what is the vulnerabilities that are available. That's where VAPT and procedure for conducting closure gaps is the one that is really coming out. A standard document is coming out. How to perform a VAPT, what type of approach you are supposed to follow that, what is the procedure, standard procedure, who should be allowed to conduct this type of exercises, and closure of the gaps, etc. Even though CERTIN has made an attempt, please remember, CERTIN, you are aware, they are having an empanelment. Now, after empanelment, is it necessary to follow them is another big question mark. Bank has never said, for example, if you look at the Reserve Bank of India has never said that banks should go only from the certain empanel vendors. They said a word very carefully, it's a qualified, remember, VAPT vendor. Because there's a lot of discussion that has come. There are certain areas where, for example, the DPSS, Department Payment Security, they are given, it has to be done from a certain empanel vendor. I use a certain empanel vendor and still the hack has happened. Who will take the liability? Now, can I go to certain and say, boss, you are the man who recommended this company as a standard company. By using this gentleman's services today, again, the hack has happened. Are you liable? The answer they said is what? No. Please understand this point. That is where the real problem is coming. So you have to be very, very careful. Is it really required for a certain empanel vendor or not? At many places it has given, it has to be from, remember, please understand, from a qualified vendor. It means the vendor should have a capability to perform this particular attacks and all that. So that is what you should think of as far as, remember, all agencies, the VAPT is what? Concerned. Now look at, after that insurance industry, what is the other industry that is gaining popularity is nothing but the SEBI. So cyber security and cyber resilience framework of stock exchanges, clearing corporations, and the depositories have come in the year 2015. It has come much ahead of, remember, the RBI cyber security framework of 2016. But this document, I don't know how many have seen it. This document exactly having identified protect. Now, after this, remember, the SEBI has come out with something called cyber security and cyber resilience framework. Have a glance of this document. It is exactly the dump of the NIST framework that has been given as a part of this. So they are given again the focus areas, like I told you, the case of NIST framework, identify, protect, detect, and 5 steps are available. Here also they are given exactly in the same manner, but they kept it as a focus areas is governance, protection, response, recovery, and all that they are given. And if you look at the, again, remember in 2019, they come out with something called the cyber security and cyber resilience framework of the mutual funds, asset management companies. So please understand today, slowly that, remember earlier, the stress is only for the business continuity. So from the business continuity, things are moving towards the data protection and other areas also. That's where even all these companies are also coming. People realize that data is also very, very important component. That's where the new guidelines that are coming is not only just targeted who are the business lines. Those who are in the non-business lines, but which are very, very critical is the one, they will also get impacted. So SEBI has also come out with something called as this point. Here I would like to say one point. Let it be Reserve Bank of India, let it be SEBI, let it be, I'm going to discuss somewhere. In case of a cyber attack happens, it's mandatory to report cyber security incident for Reserve Bank of India for 2 to 6 hours. Hope you are aware about that point. Go to, remember, the Reserve Bank of India website. There is something called SIR form is available called Security Incident Reporting Form. It is mandatory to report the cyber security incident to Reserve Bank of India in 2 to 6 hours, which are for whom the regulator is nothing but a what? RBI. But let us take a bank which got impacted with the cyber security incident. Is it necessary to inform to the SEBI? Provided the answer is nothing but it is a listed company. So please understand this point. In case of a cyber security incident happens, it is mandatory to report. Remember, if it is a bank, RBI no doubt is a regulator, but it's a listed company, it is mandatory to report to SEBI, and also mandatory to report, remember, if it is a BSE listed company, you have to inform to BSE. If it is a case of NSE, it is NSE, and if it is listed in both, you have to inform to both. So they also have the same cyber security incident response forms are available, which is a part of the CERTIN. If anybody is keen, I'm more than happy to share that forms and keep it with you. And I'll show you also in some cases it's mandatory also to report to NSDL and all that cases also. So please understand today there's a lot of agencies for whom we are supposed to inform in case of any cyber security incident hits really. Please understand this point. So that's where it is mandatory to report cyber security incident to Reserve Bank of India, SEBI, as well as to, remember, BSE, NSE, etc. So what is the next point here if you look at is something called as, remember, institutional framework. So what is the institutional framework if you look at is, it is nothing but Computer Emergency Response Team, that's popularly called CERT. So it was operational since 2004 and it has come into existence based on the Information Technology Act of 2008 under Section 70, because Section 70 has given, remember, yes, Government of India should establish a nodal agency to perform the following agent. So based on that, remember, the CERTIN has come into existence. Please understand this is very, very careful. But what is the most important is, yes, this CERTIN, remember, which initially thought of both proactive and responsive mechanisms, but slowly moving towards more like a responsive mechanisms rather than that of a simple proactive, because most of the advisories are not really coming from what? CERT as a guidelines or whatever it is. So the basic purpose of our CERT, if you look at, is the collection, analysis, remember, dissemination of information related to cyber incidents, because we know the overall world set is available with Carnegie Mellon University. So every country set is getting connected to that, remember that set. In case a cyber security incident happens somewhere in Canada, they will inform to America set, and America set is going to, remember, inform to all the sets in the world. So we know that information sharing assurance centers, how they have become ISACs. So CERTIN has become a very, very nodal agency. Any, remember, recent vulnerability, recent security incident or indicators of compromise that are available, CERTIN will gather that information. They are going to send it to all the CISOs. So if your organization is having a CISO role or someone taking care of CISO, please get registered with, remember, the CERTIN, and you will get a very good alerts, because today's sectors have become very, very focused. The cyber attacks have become very focused. Even CERTIN is also coming with something called sectorial sets. You're all aware something called FinSet, financial set is there. In India, we are having something called Rail set. In India, we are having something called Power set. So similar different sets are coming, because the malware that comes and hit the, remember, the Kodamkola nuclear plant SCADA systems will not hit the State Bank of India. The reason is that was of no use, because today the cyber attacks have become so focused and targeted to a particular sector. So that is where really sectorial sets have coming into existence. So FinSet has become very, very active today. So FinSec is, remember, one acting as a nodal agency between the major set of government of India and whereas the various banking institutions are available. So please remember, it is mandatory to report a cyber security incident within 24 hours to the computer emergency response team. Now you can ask the questions, what can happen if I don't, remember, inform to CERTIN? Please remember, CERTIN is a quasi-judicial authority, and they have powers to issue the show cause notices, and they also have powers to take the judicial action against the fellow who is not informing to them. So don't take it very lightly. Remember, CERTIN nowadays, because the pressure is coming on them, so many attacks are happening in India. Why Indian government is not taking? Because today the businesses are linked to the cyber security. That's where CERTIN, you will not believe it. Earlier they used to see whether anybody reports the DDoS attack, anybody report the ransomware. At the end of the year, they used to collect it and keep a bar diagram or a pie diagram on their website saying, this year, this many number of DDoS attacks happened. This year, this many number of email attacks happened, phishing and all that. Now they are coming. Please remember, provide the logs for investigation. They are asking you to provide the logs. Third point is, they are giving a deadline of 30 days, remember, asking you to submit the forensic investigation report. And they're cross-verifying whether you did the investigation or simply, remember, you close the report and all. And they're scanning the dark web with some agencies. In case if any organization is not reporting to them, they're directing the issue, the show cause notice, you have been breached and you are not informed to us, even the hackers have informed to us. Tell me what was the reason why this is and all that. So you will not believe it, it has becoming a more proactive today. They are, remember, doing an excellent job really to secure your what? Computers of this particular country. That's where CERTIN is playing a very important role. Then CERTIN, remember, what they started is also, yes, to serve the people, especially for small and medium organizations, and also something called as the individuals or the citizens of this country and their household computer systems. They went for something called Cyber Swachhata Kendra, where the botnet cleaning and the malware analysis has been started. There it is. Regularly 24/7 real time, the IOCs are getting updated. The latest DAT files are coming for various, remember, antiviruses, etc. Some people are going there and getting downloaded. So this is as a part of the national cyber security policy. This has been implemented. And they got the tie-up with one of the best, remember, I think 3 or 4 vendors, they got the tie-up. And they're making almost all the vendors to come for tie-up with, remember, CERTIN, so that the entire country's national cyber security ecosystem will what? Improve. Especially for the case of small, medium industries, because who can't afford to have a something called deep scanning type, scanning. I don't want to call it as it. Remember, I will tell you later why that word is a very funny word. Deep scanning, what people are thinking, that type of IOCs and IOSs these fellows are getting, and they're helping to a great extent. Now, if you look at after that set has come, there is one more agency that has come. That is again under Section 70A of the Indian Information Technology Act, called National Critical Information Infrastructure Protection Control Center. Please remember, Section 70A says there are certain computer systems in this country are popularly called protected computer systems. For example, if Mr. Sharath is having a website, I can scan that website. If any vulnerability is there, I can go inside. Sharath will file a case. Police will come and take me and arrest, and I can come out on bail. And if proved, some punishment of some years, don't worry about it. But if I scan the website of particular Government of India organization, or one which is a part of the national critical information infrastructure, let it be a bank, let it be ATM network. So this, remember, NCAACPC has become a very, very important component today because most of the critical information infrastructure is getting monitored. Please understand this point. And if State Bank of India is having their own monitoring system, above that, the Government of India is monitoring it. They got a tie-up with various, remember, the dark web forums. For example, there are certain times where the bank could not identify the vulnerability, where a hacker was already penetrated to the network. These fellows are getting the information, they are informing to the bank. Using this username and this password from this IP address, attacker has entered into our network. You will not believe it, it's not surprising. Exactly around 6 months back, this NCAACPC and as a part of, remember, Prime Minister's office, I contacted certain agencies. That agencies have identified 8 Indian banks are constantly getting connected to the command and control servers in North Korea. They identified the IP addresses and they are given for each and every bank what was the username and what was the, remember, password by which the attackers have come inside and how long they are getting connected and all that. Afterwards, we did the forensic investigation. Exactly, we are able to prove it, how the attackers came inside with the same. Before the bank, you know, that is, I can say the top 3 banks in this country, 2 banks were there. You will not believe it. So it means these are the people who are monitoring above, remember, what the organizations are really monitoring and what organizations are using various types of what technologies. Now, recently, one more has come out, something called N3C. I don't know how many of you aware. Again, it has come. National Cyber Coordination Center, which was come as a part of the CERTIN and MAITI for implementing the national level project. And this is aimed to develop a situation awareness to existing and potential cyber threats. You know that, I don't know how many of you aware. Now, this is exactly, remember, how this organization has come, NCCC we call it as. And they are implementing a honeypot in the whole network. So please understand it. All important service providers in this country, their entire logs, they are collecting it. You can think of how massive this program is really. And at the national level, they are trying to build that system. So a national honeypot program is going to get implemented. All the service providers, all the, remember, the Fortune 500 companies, out of that 60% of the companies were asked to coordinate with the central government. A honeypot is going to get implemented because they are going to keep a set of sensors in their network. For example, you take a company called, let us take the case of some XYZ Motors. So XYZ Motors are having their own network. These people are not going to. Above that, they are going to keep a sensor. So any data packet that is going into their network, these people also will intercept and identify whether any malicious connections are happening to the outside world. So National Cyber Coordination Center is the one that is going to create a national honeypot program to identify the malicious activities that are happening at the internet level for the entire country, starting from gateway levels to the service providers and all that. Now, they also implemented something called traffic monitoring. All the service providers today, you will not believe it. It's a mandatory, and there's, remember, the traffic is getting what? Monitored. So their mail servers, web servers, etc., which are outside, it's going. So these organizations are keeping a lock. You can think of, if there are some 20,000 bigger companies where there are all the 20,000 companies 24/7, all types of logs starting from DNS servers to web servers to mail servers to proxies. They're collecting and, remember, doing something called threat hunting, something called IOCs, compromise assessments, and they're pushing that, saying, yes, there is some systems in our network is getting connected to some, remember, that's where a public-private partnership is really working here to a very great extent. That's where I said, regulator no longer is thinking that I'm only a government job. This is where the private and public are coming together really to secure the national critical information infrastructure. That's where this completely N3C is doing something called what? Traffic monitoring. But what is most important for a citizen of the country? Yes, sir, you said that you are having N3C, which is really securing NCAACPC, securing the organizations and all. That is where we got a new organization that has come under Ministry of Home Affairs. That is popularly called I4C. Indian Cybercrime Coordination Center has come out. It was approved in the October 2018, a very good funding of something around 2,500 crores or something, where a national cybercrime threat analytic unit, they are establishing it. The most important, I don't know how many of you seen it, is from the last 1 month or 20 days, you might have come across a place. If any customer in India in this country loses some money because of phishing call or sharing of the OTP, they have given a number. Can any one of you can recall what was the number where you should support inform? Any one of the participant? Any one of the participant can say, sir, what was the telephone number where you should inform? At least you can check after this session, you will understand it. You will not believe it. In the last 2 months after it has come out, 30% of the money they are able to what? Recover it. Where an individual has lost the money because of phishing call, where their OTP has been shared, or OLX fraud, or call it as a Paytm fraud, etc. At least some achievement has been made in the many parts of this country. If you look at it, nearly 9 states where the people are very, very happy as far as this is concerned. That's where they mentioned about, remember, a cybercrime reporting portal is also been created. You're all well aware, remember, in the Orissa, where a girl was raped and video has been taken and the same video has been circulated. Like that, there are so many people who are victims of the cyber crimes, but they are not coming forward to report it. That's where the National Cybercrime Portal has been created. It's a completely citizen-centric initiative where anybody come across pornographic image or anybody is a victim who don't want to come forward, just go and register there. You go and say, remember, you don't require to tell the name of the victim. You register, you give your mobile number, you give your mail. Immediately, remember, the message will go to the local police station where you are staying. So that's where the case will be registered and automatic FIR will get generated. And the central government is really monitoring whether really this is working or not. So that is where, remember, the National Cybercrime Reporting Portal has been created. That's where this free number has been given. Now, I think probably the next couple of months, they are forcing the banks to also work 24/7, because at least the limit of withdrawal the money of 20,000, beyond that even 1 lakh transfer, 20,000 is withdrawn, at least 80,000 rupees they can save it. That's where they are giving the information to various banks to immediately block that particular payments. They're all bringing small and medium banks. NBFCs are also coming under this category. If this got really implemented, with the help of, remember, the mobile service providers, I'm pretty sure about it, the number of frauds that are happening where customers are getting victimized will dramatically reduces to 10%. I'm pretty sure about it because this is working very perfectly, including because we know the Kejriwal data has also lost the money. So everybody realizes this type of system has to be there where customers are losing a very big amount of money. So ultimately, to combine all this, what is happening at the state government levels? We know law and order is a state subject, and few states really started their cybercrime police stations. And Data Security Council of India, DSC, has started a cyber labs, where some of the states, remember, the cyber labs have been given. Funding has been given by the DSCA, and people were trained, the equipment has been kept, and some people are also as a consultants joined there, so that they are going to help them, remember, really to secure them. So I think someone has raised anyone would like to speak? So earlier one said that as a regulator, Reserve Bank of India, who is there in the regulator in the Reserve Bank of India? There is something called CSIT is available. Cyber Security and Information Examination, remember, this is the one that has been established under Department of Banking Supervision. So earlier it is Department of Banking Supervision, now Department of Supervision, the name has been modified very recently. And the CSIT is the one, this is, remember, giving the advisories. They are the one who are conducting the cyber drills, etc., on the banks, etc. And they are the one who will come to the bank and who are all under regulated entities in the Reserve Bank of India. They are going and doing the IT security auditing. Now you can get a question mark here. How come the Reserve Bank of India people who comes to the IT security audit, how much really they know what document we are submitting? Okay, they will come and say, please submit our VAPT report. So now Reserve Bank of India has started a massive program of training their own personnels, and they're taking also the consultants along with them when they're going for IT security auditing. That's where they're really looking for some other people who got retired so that they can help them. They will pay for them and they'll go and do the IT security audit, and they are going to give a what? Report based on that. So please remember, as I mentioned, it is mandatory to report 2 to 6 hours the cyber security incident for this particular body. Please understand that is most important. And now these people have become very clever. Now they are putting a lot of penalties. We have seen it 15 days back or 10 days back. Axis Bank has got something around 5 crores of rupees. Out of it, some component is non-implementation of the Reserve Bank of India guidelines as far as the cyber security is what concerned here. And what's the other agency that is helping again the banking sector is nothing but the IDRBT available at Hyderabad, Institute for Developmental Banking and Research and what? Technology. So this is also really helping the banks. And how it is also helping, not only remember providing the various documents and giving advices and doing the research and technology, they created something called the popularly IB CART. So Center for Analysis, please remember the name itself is very clear, analysis of risk and threats. So it is more like, remember, Information Security Assurance Center or a sharing agency for the financial sector. And this IB CART is almost like a CISO forum they created it. So all the CISOs of various banks which are coming under as a regulator of RBI, they're all joining here. They're sharing their experiences of recent attacks. If one bank implements a product, they will give the advice to the other bank how to go ahead, etc. and all. Because why I'm mentioning, you can join these groups because there is no hard and fast rule, you're an outsider. Because sharing of information has become very, very crucial. That is the most important thing you are supposed to what? Keep in mind. That's where a public-private partnerships are the one that is really we are moving towards. No longer it is a government control, it is a public-private partnership. That is the most important. Then after IB CART, what you are having is REBIT. I don't know how many have heard about this word called REBIT. REBIT is the Reserve Bank of India Information Private Limited. This is the one, it was founded in the year 2016. As I already mentioned about cyber security, innovation, these are some of the verticals that are available under REBIT. So when, cyber security, innovation, IS audit, if any of the Reserve Bank will go for auditing of any of the banks, they are taking the help of the REBIT employees. They are having some 250 people plus are available here. These people will go and review the documents that has been submitted by the bank, whether really red team they have done it or a fake red team they have done it, etc. They will test it, remember, technically also whether the controls are in place or not. That is what the REBIT is available. And these are some of the institutional frameworks I mentioned about it. But today, if you look at it, I can say very proudly, remember, the Reserve Bank of India is taking a far ahead of other regulators in this country. That's the reason why today the focus of the banks have become more towards the cyber security and governance, what was present almost 8 to 9 years back, if you compare. So that's where I can say that the same has been implemented by the various sectors like insurance industries, if you talk about the telecom industries and all that. I think the number of cyber security incidents will come down very, very drastically. So information sharing and having a very good cyber security policy framework which is implemented and proper monitoring is the key. That is what very, very important. So let me pause at this stage before I go for the technical issues related to the Information Technology Act, which I'm going to present. Is there any 1 or 2 questions that are available so that I can go for the next topic? Any question at this stage as the regulator is concerned and the framework is concerned? Okay. So I will come for that because once I go for the legal framework, I'm going to discuss about exactly why India requires a Data Protection Act, because already there are some clauses that are available. That's why I used to say in a lighter way, put GDPR in a bottle and give one command, that is replace euro with your what? Rupee, and convert that euro amount with respect to multiplying, that will become a Indian Data Privacy Act. There is nothing difference. That is where the NCAAC PC certain are playing a very, very important role, sir. If you look at, remember, the regulated agencies are really coming forward, and it is, remember, the reason is the framework is going like a pyramid now, very nicely now. That's where RBI, anybody who's going to report to RBI certainly has to report to NCAAC PC as well as to that of CERTIN. So all creating the databases. So then the CERTIN is not only going to ask the victim, but also going to ask the RBI what action you have performed based on this. So a perfect coordination is happening between all these regulated entities at the back end, right? So nobody will hack it by using the framework. You take it granted. So I told already the same point. Framework is not going to be a detailed document. It's only the broad guidelines. So they said bank should have something, a chief information security officer. Bank should have encryption strategy. So these are all things they are going to mention about it. They are not going to detail you exactly, remember what is the point. But where the real problem is coming, that's where RBI is coming out, one important concept document in the next week, etc. That is something called the vendor risk management and all that, because outsourcing. For example, let us see even how we are trying to change even the CVC guidelines also. All nationalized bank, it's mandatory for them to float their tenders in a common site so that everybody can access it. For example, there's a ABC nationalized bank is there. It being a nationalized bank, they have to follow Central Vigilance Commission recommendations. So what the bank is going to float the tender? I'm looking for a vendor for the, remember, analysis of my Swift ecosystem or something. I'm looking for someone to audit my system and all that. So he is going to come out with, yes, XYZ bank is having a ATM switch, which is a model, this is a make, etc. 3 years back, the audit has been happened on this, and we are looking for a vendor. This is the architecture of the vendor, everything they are going to mention about it. So when such a detailed document is given, that is what the hackers can take the advantage of that one. So please understand, that's where the detailed documentation, where it is happening it, but not really at the framework level, etc., because the frameworks are not a complete detailed documentation. For example, one nationalized bank wants to move from security operations center to something called next generation security operations center. Their tender is available in the, remember, public domain. If you want, you can go. They are given each and every detail. Am I audible, sir?
Yes.
Yeah, they are given each and every detail about their security operations center. Currently, what firewalls are happening, what firewall they are thinking about it, where is the position of the firewall, model number, make number, serial number, everything they are given it is. Now the hackers have got the entire home plan. It means they know where is the, remember, window is available. Not only window is available, what is the size of the window that is also available. So based on that, they can able to come out very easily. So that is from the bank side, etc. that is happening. Now look at other side, what the vendors are creating the problem. Recently, there is one bank available in Bangalore. That is, there is two banks, right? X and Y. I don't want to tell the name of the banks both. These two banks are using, remember, the same antivirus program. And no one knows about it also. A hacker sent a phishing mail. By sending the phishing mail, remember, he is able to compromise that X. Today, for your information, you all know very well about a website called popularly Virus Total. If, okay, Mr. Sridhar has having, remember, a particular file, he wants to know, is it a virus or not a virus or a malicious program? He dropped that file into Virus Total to identify, is it a virus or not a virus? Everyone will do it. Most of the security operations center people will do this trick. So Virus Total has become, remember, a place where people are testing the files, and let it be any file, whether is it a virus or not. But the same Virus Total is getting used today by the hackers also. They develop a malicious program. They will drop it in, remember, the Virus Total, see how many are getting detected. If all are getting detected, again, he will try to modify that program so that they will not get detected. So he is using Virus Total to see how many are not detecting and how many are detecting. For example, I came to know McAfee has not detected that. So then what I try to do, I will try to drop this virus into organizations which are using McAfee. So how to identify which are using McAfee? Go to their website and they say, following are my clients. So that fellow is going to give the list of their clients. So please remember today, the hackers are using which type of antivirus you are using from the antivirus vendors' websites, and that is how they are penetrating to our network. So please remember, that's where we used to say vendor risk management is very, very important concept that is really coming out in all these cases. If you outsource or contracting has happened, subcontracting has happened, etc. So my point, hope you are clear about, I have given in a very elaborate manner. It is not the frameworks. It is you people are really creating the bigger problems by floating all the details. Second, also your LinkedIn profiles also we have seen it, where you say that I am the IT head, following are my functions for so and so. You will write it so beautifully. And you are telling I'm the shift in charge, I'm this in charge, that in charge, and all you are writing so elaborately. So people are getting so and so bank, who is the man, what type of activities is performing it. That's where the phishing attacks are happening. Please control that one to a great extent and LinkedIn nature of the job, you don't write it very, very clearly. You need not lodge because the second you registered with a proper telephone number, you are going to get confirmed whether really or a fake. Once the confirmation is happened, it's automatically FIR is going to get registered at the address where the victim is present or where you registered, generally the victim places. Then that you can take it and you can go ahead. So you don't require to have a separate FIR. Okay. So now let us go for the case of members, the Indian Information Technology Act related to the 2000, the legal framework, because I'm not going to cover the traditional one, but most controversial ones that is what I would like to look at. And many people are also having a thinking, sir, this case is a cyber fraud where 2 crores has been taken out by that man and why it was not registered under the IT Act, etc. Please remember, IT Act 2000 has to be read along with the existing acts. If you do a 500 crores or 200 crores or something, ultimately 420 has to come into picture. So please understand this point. So that's where Information Technology Act 2000 has to be read along with the existing acts, and it should not be read alone. Second point is IT Act, the main purpose for which it has come in 2000, and slightly it was modified with some crimes, etc. in 2008. But the most important purpose for which the IT Act has come in 2000 is to provide a legal sanctity for the electronic transactions you are making it. Let it be digital signatures or let it be electronic transactions you are making it. So that was the purpose for which the IT Act has come into existence. So today you should see Information Technology Act as more as a technology document rather than that of a what? Legal document, especially for the corporates I'm talking about. So please remember the next point is it was enacted in November 2000, 17th May, and it was based on the unilateral model. I don't want to. Now where it is going to be applicable is the one you should think of. You might have heard at several places these points are this at least 3 or 4 the first slides. So please understand this one, where the computer resource is available in this country, where the attacker or the fraudster is present in any part of the world, as long as this, remember, resource is available in this country, yes, the case is going to be applicable. Here it is. Please understand this point. If he access and gains entry into, remember, any systems which are available in this country, any network, any service providers, any proxy servers that are present in this country, your IT Act is going to be what? Applicable. So that is a point you should think of. And the most important from the corporate's point of view is section 43 and 43A. That's where I said compensation for failure to protect our data. It means if I give the data to someone, if he's failed to protect my data, there the most important is what data is the most important. Is there anything called properly sensitive personal identifiable information? The answer is what? Yes. Which will come under sensitive identifiable personal information, we are going to show it. So today if you look at it, leaving this section 43A Act and the 72, the breach of confidentiality and the privacy, when these two are available, you don't require to go for something called as a Data Privacy Act because it was very well laid down under 43A and the section 72. In reality, you don't require to talk about something called as a Data Privacy Act separately. And the other point I told you, the word terrorism was not defined in any other laws. And perhaps the Indian Information Technology Act is the one where the cyber terrorism has been defined. We are going to look at this. Under section 70, I told you very clearly, the government of India is going to declare certain organizations or the computer systems are called protected computer systems. If anybody unauthorizedly joins into that protected systems, automatically section 70 is going to come into picture. So please understand it. Second is, what about the intermediate roles? So we know that earlier when 2000 was present, intermediates are not liable for prosecution. Try to recall the case of the Baji.com case. Hope you remember the case of the Baji.com that has rocked this country. So they say that intermediates are not liable for prosecution because they don't know the web server that was taken by rent for some company. I don't know what they're really hosting on that. But the question mark that is going to come, it is very simple. If intermediate knows intentionally, still that's called due diligence factor. The second point, most important, is nothing but, please remember, that is how long they're supposed to provide the log files. These two are well discussed about under section 67C, which I'm going to show you what is the meaning of that one. So remaining is very, very simple. So let me talk about the 43A. So this is the one that are given. Any corporate body which possesses or deals with any sensitive personal data or information, look at and tell me what way this sensitive data personal information is different from that of whatever is a Data Privacy Act that is mentioned, because I'm going to show you what is that. And is negligent in maintaining the reasonable security practices. That's where the reasonable security practices will come into picture. But who is going to decide whether you have taken a reasonable security practices or not is nothing but the court. That is where you are supposed to tell them, sir, I'm ISO 27001 certified. I'm following the best information security practices, IS audit I'm conducting regularly. So that is where the 43A is going to help the organization to prove yourself. Second, 72A is provide the punishment for disclosure of information breach or what? Lawful contract or any person. For example, if you look at is today you pay 100 rupees or something, go to remember registered office and certainly you are going to get a certificate related to a marriage of some people. You are going to get a contract, you have made it remember for purchasing an apartment. For example, try to recall something called encumbrance certificate. So you'll go and pay the money and take the encumbrance certificate, remember. So because some house is there, that house is on whose name, you want to know it before you purchase. What details you require, nothing, just how you know the house number, etc. Go and pay that, you are going to get an encumbrance certificate. It means between two parties that got executed, it has been really breached. So there are so many real cases that are available today, which are really people are not aware. That's where I say that if you know exactly the interpretation of 43A and 72A, India don't require to have something called Data Privacy Act. Please remember this point. Yes, Aadhaar Act has come into existence. There also again something related to the data privacy is available. Santosh, you raised it. Just let me finish the 3-4 slides. The last 15 minutes, I'm more than happy to answer this one. So there it is again. There is a, if you go to Aadhaar Act and the data privacies, 43A is really not applicable for the case of Aadhaar. There is a lot of controversy that has happened between 43A and that of Aadhaar, because Aadhaar has never mentioned in any of the cases whether the data privacy is applicable for them or not. Please understand that point. For example, if you go to Aadhaar website or you are trying to register it, Aadhaar has never taken any data privacy certificate from you. But from the Data Privacy Acts are clearly mentioning about it, there should be a certificate for you. So there is a big dispute is happening between Aadhaar Act as well as that of the data privacy. And that is under 30, I think I remember the section 30 of what? The Aadhaar Act, whatever data they're collecting it is. And I'm not going to discuss much about the section 65, 60B. That is something dishonestly, I'm more than happy to share it, right? This presentation. And let us look at even also the word cyber terrorism. This is what I said. So protected computer systems, earlier I mentioned about under section 70. So please understand, under section 70, what are protective computer systems are available. That protective computer systems really, if anybody touches, let it be airport computer systems or power computer systems or etc., the punishments are clearly can be booked under section 66F of what? Cyber terrorism. That's why any of you for fun also, when you try to scan the network, assuming that, okay, I'm doing a bug bounty program and I'm going to tell you, okay, something voluntary disclosure, I'm serving the country. Let me scan the State Bank of India computer systems. And if I found any vulnerability, let me inform to the, remember, NCAA PC saying these are the vulnerabilities I found it. It's a very risky job. So please understand this point very clearly. Scanning of the computer systems, not entering even. Scanning of the computer systems itself is punishable. That is the most important one you are supposed to what? Think about as a part of this. So section 67C, preservation retention of information by the intermediaries. You know, all intermediaries, whether is it liable for them to preserve the logs. It is mandatory for them to preserve the logs up to 1 year, please understand it. And beyond that, you have to take up to 8 years as a backup. And the live systems, it is 180 days, you are supposed to maintain it. So please understand, 180 days, remember, is a live system data. Up to 1 year is nearby. And up to 8 years, the data is supposed to be kept it on what? On the back of that, especially for banking and all financial transactions. As per the Money Laundering Act, etc. Any financial transaction data that is at up to 8 years, you are supposed to what? Maintain it as per the Prevention of Money Laundering Act, etc. So 67C very clearly says, Now, what about the digital locker? I don't know how many have heard about this digital locker. Digital lockers can be offered even by private companies also. They come out with the rules, something called 2016. The government of India has come out with a locks, or what I can say, gadget also. That gadget information is also clearly giving that they will also be considered as, remember, something called as intermediaries. If anybody is offering a digital locker, remember, facilities, all they're supposed to follow is under section 43A rules, best information security practices, and also the section 73, the contract, 72 contract, etc. Also they're supposed to follow it. This is what people are talking about related to the Pegasus and all. Section 69 clearly says government of India has a power to intercept and what? Decrypt it. Please remember, there are 7 agencies that has been given by the government of India having the powers to intercept and what? Decrypt it. And that is where, if you look at it, this slide is going to be self-explanatory because I don't want to discuss much this one for some reason, to be frank, because my friends are recording it. So section 69 allows interception of any information to ask for information for decryption. If WhatsApp is encrypting it, the government of India is having a right to provide them the decryption, and refuse to provide the decryption is a what? Offense. Please understand this point is. Under Telegraphic Act 85, the government can tap the phones. But Supreme Court has made a, remember, saying it should be done only in the case of what? Public emergency. But under, remember, section 69, there is nothing called public emergency. That's where 20 December 2018, the Ministry of Home Affairs cited section 69 in the issue of order, authorizing central government agencies to intercept, monitor, and decrypt any information generated, please understand this word, transmitted, received, or stored in any computer system. They have a power. So please understand this point. Even though some claim this is to be violation of the right to privacy, but on the grounds of the national security, 69A has made a very clear stand as far as the government of India to intercept and what? Decrypt it. Hope you are clear about it. Why the issue of the WhatsApps, etc. People are looking from one angle, but the law enforcement perspective is a completely what? Different. They have a power to also what? Decrypt it, and they can ask the people to provide the decryption key. Refusal to provide the decryption keys is also what? Punishable. This we are seeing not only from this, starting from earlier we know RIM, Research in Motion, one company who started in India, but later there's a lot of dispute and they provide the keys for the decryption also. Hope you are aware about what is the company I'm talking about, RIM, right? So section 69A, power to block the websites. Certain is having a powers to block the website, but there are certain conditions where they have to go to the court and get the court order, and they have a power to, remember, even to block the websites also. And this is what the section 70 of the protected systems, securing unauthorized access or attempting to secure unauthorized access. That's where I said scanning of the computer systems which are protected. And you know that if anybody within the organization, he himself and goes made ATM switch server completely off without a proper permission, the organizations can take action for it, because that is concerned, ATM switch is considered as nothing but a critical computer system under what? Protected systems. So that is where, remember, port scanning, installation of software, using installed softwares, hardwares for doing something, these are all really punishable, and imprisonment up to 10 years and fine, and it's a non-bailable. Please remember, it's a cognizable offense. And this is 71 and 72. That's a penalty to breach the confidentiality. That's where I said we don't require to have a complete data privacy act. Sorry. This is 73, 70 related to, remember, digital signatures. Today, a lot of cases we are using it. The stolen digital certificates are getting used. By using that, they are able to penetrate into the organization's network. That is, again, you can book it, because many people are not even aware about in the cyber attacks how they're happening, but we are observing this as a trend. And perhaps for the first time in the cyber crimes, remember, the electronic form of evidence has been devised. That is popularly called electronic evidence. And under section 17A, Government of India has said, in case of disputes related to the electronic evidence where the law enforcement was present, it has to be examined by certain agencies which are declared by the central government and notifying them as examiner of electronic evidences. So already 7 laboratories in the country has been declared, but they're all government laboratories. Please understand this point. So government forensic laboratories are notified as something called examiner of electronic evidence. In case of legal disputes happens where it's a case of a police crime or something, etc. Yes, in such cases, the evidence has to be examined by them. So that is where the government has issued already a notification related to that. And this is the one that I'm going to talk about. Some people have asked, sir, is India is having something called data localization laws, etc. Look at under 11th April 2011. So please understand this point. The government law says any organization in this country can store any data related to any citizen of this country, can be stored in any part of the world. It means I'm having a company in India, I'm having another company in Nigeria. I can store this data in this country, provided if anything happens, I will be made responsible for that. There is nothing called data localization law in this country. Please understand this point. Except I'm going to come for the case of Reserve Bank of India guidelines related to payment transaction data. Leaving that, nothing was there. Second, under the same document of 11th April 2011, Government of India has given what is the meaning of the sensitive personal data or information. Sensitive personal data or information is the one, these are all things are considered as a part of that. Sir, tell me, sir, under Data Privacy Act, whether these were all present there or not. You yourself will understand it. Any information processed under above clauses by body corporate for processing stored or processed under lawful contract or otherwise. Please understand it. This is going to come under what? 43A related document. Just please go to this particular document. It is available on internet. Anywhere you can store the data. What about the case of, remember, something called payment transaction data? If I transfer 5 rupees from my account to Mr. Sarath account, in the payment transaction, you are going to have a complete string. What that string? My account number, his account number, transaction IDs, how much amount, at what time, hours, minutes, seconds, and all that is going to be available there. So the whole string should be stored within India itself. Please understand this whole string I'm talking about it. For example, if I transfer $10 to my daughter in America to a Bank of America, we know the data will go from here to there also. What the other country, that Bank of America servers available there it is, they can keep that American part with them. Whole should not be stored with them for more than 24 hours without the proper approval of the Reserve Bank of India. So the whole string, remember, maximum 24 hours. If they want to keep it for more, because there somebody, FBA wants to monitor what are the money laundering activities are happening, they may require for it. Without proper approval from the Reserve Bank of India, they should not store more than 24 hours. As a whole string, I'm talking about it. Part of that one, leaving my Indian component data, remaining which is American component data, they can store on their own. So leaving that, today, if you ask me, there is nothing is called as something as data localization law. Only thing you should think of is, they said very clearly, please remember this point. Yes, leaving the payment transaction data, any data can be stored at any location. Please understand this is. And sensitive personal identifiable information, if something breach happens, under section 43, leaving that, there's nothing called as, please understand this point, something called as a what? Data Privacy Act in this country. Aadhaar card alone data, please remember, if somebody takes my PAN card data, somebody is having my date of birth and all that, please remember, nothing you can able to see it. As on date, what you can see is only nothing but leaving the Aadhaar full number. Remaining is something will come under sensitive personal identifiable. What are these? And this is a reasonable security practices you have to take it. After taking a reasonable security practices, again some breach happens, maximum penalty is only 5 crores. That to what? If other party who has taken my biometric information, if he dishonestly using for some wrong purposes, if he collects and store it with him, there is no problem at all. It means if I am having the PAN, remember, for example, the medical records and the history of Mr. Sharath with me, no problem. Causing harm to Sharath by using that and using that dishonestly for doing something fraud, then only you can think of. Otherwise, you need not think about any of these things. So please understand that was a big problem we are facing it, sir. There's nothing called as a data privacy in this country. Leaving Aadhaar card, where I'm mentioning about it, I've seen it lot of websites. If you want, you can go for registered companies. I think if you being a chartered accountant, you know very well about it. Many companies in this country are keeping on their company website. The shareholders who have not taken, remember, every annual, I think on based on the shares, they will get some money. I don't know, because I never have any share certificate in my life. Some 100 rupees, 200 rupees dividend, sorry. If the dividend was not received by them, they are displaying on their website the name, remember that person, how many shares is having, share account number, his address, mobile number. Today, if you want, you can go to 100 websites, 100 listed companies. And I will tell you in 70%, look at all the, annually they are keeping it. People are keeping their name, date of birth, mobile number, house address, complete PAN card numbers. Some cases, even please remember, some cases people are still keeping even the full Aadhaar card number also. Please understand this point. If you want, you can go and verify. Otherwise, I will give you as a proof. Several places, the top fortune companies, also auditors are keeping this data on their website. Please remember that point. If somebody downloads, is it a crime? The answer is no. But using that name, using that fellow some photograph or something, he creates a fake PAN card or a fake Aadhaar card or something, then you can think of a bigger issue. So please understand, sir, leaving that, there is nothing called as, remember, the data localization. Yes, everyone said data in transit and data in, remember, stored must be in what? Encrypted format. That is the guidelines issued by the Reserve Bank of India as the regulators, right? So that even if somebody comes inside, take out the data unauthorizedly, yes, the data is in what? Encrypted format, etc. So data at rest and data in transit must be in encrypted format. Leaving that, there is nothing called as a complete data localization. Only in the case of, remember, the payment transactions of Reserve Bank of India, this order has been what? Issued. So these are my thought process, because I don't want to cover more about the legal issues. If you are having any specific questions, I'm more than happy to answer.